Disturbing video is reigniting the debate over horse carriages in the city. It shows a horse collapsing in Central Park before ultimately being euthanized.
Oh, now he's up. There he goes.
Horse named Aisha down on the ground after struggling to stand several times Saturday. Eventually, carriage drivers get her into a trailer, but because some may find it disturbing, we're only showing part of the footage taken by pedicab drivers and released by New York Class, an animal rights organization.
She then suddenly lost control of her back legs altogether. They unhooked her as fast as they could. They called the vet. They called the trailer over here.
New York Class says the way drivers got her into the trailer was troubling.
Punching, blowing smoke in the face, pulling the tail, doing everything they could to get that horse in the trailer because they don't want people to see a horse being brutalized that way.
A spokesperson for the horse carriage industry says that if horses cannot stand, they cannot get circulation, and that is ultimately why the owner decided to euthanize her. New York Class is now again calling on the city to ban the carriage horses. Tourists we spoke with had mixed reactions.
You've got electric bikes. Why put them through that? It's freezing out here.
They took really good care of the horse. He was very patient, and if the horse needed to stop, he stopped.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed the ride, and we got to feed him carrots afterwards.
It's weird to tell from the video like what exactly affected the horse.
The mayor tweeted in part the video is painful and says so much about a persistent problem. The NYPD will investigate the cause. In Central Park, Lisa Rosner, CBS 2 News.
New York Class is also asking for dash cams to be put inside the carriages to monitor the welfare of the horses. The carriage industry says it's unnecessary and that horses at the stables get high-quality treatment.
That's going to be tough. That's 1,200 pounds, whatever it is. He's going to do that. Oh, there he goes. There he goes. Oh, no. He wants to go in. You can tell he wants to go in. Oh, no.
Don't put him on that slippery thing.
No, they got to get him on there to get him up. They got to get him on there. So, yeah, that's true. That's right. But they got to keep his legs out from under. Now push that mother in. You're on. Get him in.
They're going to have to winch him in. Don't make him get up on that slippery thing.
What about the horse carriages themselves do you feel rises to the level of animal abuse or cruelty?
Well, I would say that this is not about abuse or cruelty. Those are actually terms that we as anti-speciesists don't use. Because cruelty is kind of like a sliding scale set by humans. Hi, my name is Adam Stirr, and I'm the co-founder of At War for Animals Niagara.
December of 2017, we became aware of a group identified as AWFAN, At War for Animals Niagara, who were advised that they plan to protest the practice of the town of Niagara-on-the-Lake licensing the use of horse carriages through the town, citing their opposition to speciesism, which they define as the systemic oppression of non-human species of animals by humans.
We started around October 2017, and our campaign began as your typical welfarist campaign, in which we were concerned about the treatment and conditions that the horses were being used in. But upon personal development between myself and other members, we transitioned this traditional welfarist campaign into an anti-speciesist campaign. This is kind of a worldwide movement, I guess you would say. We are members of a worldwide organizing group, in which we're all kind of working against this. The difference with us is that we are more focused on not so much the welfare and treatment, which is how a lot of these other bans have actually occurred, is through welfare complaints and horses dying in the streets and overt violence, right? And that's where a lot of these other groups are focused. Ours is different because we are solely arguing the fact that they're used and that this use is immoral and improper.
Who cares about the horse? You don't care about this horse?
Stop harassing people, Eddie! Stop harassing people! About animals? Stop harassing people!
Why don't you get off and talk to me? I'm the 2-year-old on board.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's not very good parenting, sir. There's no seatbelts in that car.
You're wearing a dead animal around your neck, and now you're going to ride a dead animal.
Shame on you! Shame on you!
You got no compassion.
Shame on you! You should have compassion. Where's your compassion? Come on. Where's your compassion? Come on. Where's your compassion? You left it at home today? You left it at home.
This horse works 9 to 14 hours a day and never gets to play in the park that it rides around. You have a choice to go into the park. This horse does not have a choice in this. This does not have a choice in this horse.
I'm only here for the day, I'm only here for a very short time.
You can walk. You can walk.
There's petty cabs.
He was arrested last week for punching
through the park? It's
He was arrested.
And she
If you look at your general, quote-unquote, general animal liberation activism, this is pretty much as vanilla as it gets. Like when we're
I certainly don't accuse you of
no, but
threatening or violence.
no, nothing like that. And I mean, even the way that we engage with people, like we don't speak to people, number one, who don't speak to us. So when we're on the corner over here, people are freely flowing past us, you know, and we only speak to those who choose to speak to us. And when we do, we don't really negatively engage with people. If people don't agree with us, you know, that's okay. Not everyone sees it like we do. All we want is for people to take a look at our signs, speak to us, have a moment of critical thought, and carry on your day. Because cruelty is kind of like a sliding scale set by humans that basically sets the amount of violence towards others that we deem to be acceptable. And this slider is different for all different people, right? Everyone has a different kind of slider setting for how much violence is acceptable to them. We, as anti-speciesists, like to keep our slider setting at 0. 0 violence against any other persons for any reason is acceptable to us. No, we don't believe that they mistreat or cause egregious overt violence to their animals, but what we disagree with is the fact that they are commodified and used as property for their personal benefit. That's the mainstay of what we object to. It's not because.
So it's not necessarily like keeping in mind your previous answer. So it's not a matter of necessarily abuse or harm. It's just that the use of it.
Right, it's the fact that their value is seen only in the labor that they can provide to the business entity, right? They're used to make a living for these individuals, which we disagree with, right? We are all for people rescuing non-human persons from the speciesist system of exploitation, but rescuing an individual does not entail taking them from one form of use and then repurposing them into another form of use. That's more like recycling. Locals for Carriages is a group of local people who don't believe that other animals should have legal personhood. They often post about being pro-exploitation, pro-property status, pro-status quo, right? It's very disheartening. I mean, we have no objection to people expressing their opinions. This is obviously a free democracy. People are allowed to speak their mind, but if you would look at some of the videos of the stuff they do when they come and they stand in front of us and they, you know, it's all what it seems to be to me is they base a lot of what they do on intimidation, where they're just trying to intimidate us into going away or being quiet or stopping what we're doing. There's the obvious, very vocal, I would say, not right minority, but probably less than half of people are very vocally against us. They come down and swear at us and yell at us and call us all kinds of names, tell us to get jobs and stuff like that. But then there's the other half of people who come by quietly and, you know, give us the thumbs up and they whisper that they agree with us. But it seems there's a lot of people who are too afraid. They agree with us, but they're too afraid to speak out because it's a small town, right? They're probably afraid of being shamed or whatever by this very vocal group who is against us.
Do you find that the tourists are equally supportive, or?
The tourists are actually very supportive. We have even had people, we've been doing a non-traditional petition this last summer where people from anywhere in the world can make a statement to us, and we record it on video and we post it on our page, excuse me, for others to see and to show the city council that, you know, this is not something, this type of animal use in the 21st century is not something a lot of tourists, a lot of them from more progressive areas, want to see.
How do you deal with online bullying and trolling?
We always engage with trolls.
Okay.
Always engage. Trolls are...
How has that not prevented you from, like, losing your mind?
It is, at first, it was very difficult, right? But what you need to recognize is the trolls are probably one of your greatest assets. They're almost...
They drive responses?
They drive traffic. Yeah. And they also allow us to articulate our argument in a very clear and reasonable way while they are engaging in a very unreasonable, threatening, and bullying way. And then after the fact, lots of people go and see, like on media articles and all these other things, a lot of people go and read through the comments afterwards. And when we appear to be the reasonable, rational, well-articulated, calm people, it gives credence to our movement, and having all these comments actually drives the traffic.
Sorry, if I can just, so we, in Niagara-on-the-Lake, we have a system like that currently. If you're going to close a road, a park, or any public property, you have to fill out a permit, and the police are asked to review that permit application as well. So is this the type of permit that you've been reviewing, or is it something
I think that's different. We're talking about a protest. If you have a parade or something similar to that, that's completely different.
Well, okay, but it says demonstration, parade, march, rally, celebration. It's all of the above. If you're going to close public property, you need a permit. We have that already in place. And is that a similar thing, or is it, again, I'm going to ask, is it different? We get reports that people are being intimidated, feeling as though they're using, the protesters are using fear tactics. So residents are actually uncomfortable. Is there any action that they can take, or we can take then to deal with that? And is there any sort of transition from a public protest to a public nuisance? Is there a description where it becomes something other than what it originally was said was intended to be?
I would think.
Been filming. I mean, obviously, you know, people have mobile cameras with them all over our world now. But if we are contacted by a resident who has a concern about an incident or feels they were filmed and they didn't give consent, or they have concern about where that film might be going, is there any, does that warrant also a call to the police if there's a concern about filming or voyeurism or any of those kind of things?
Is there, just explain there is a difference, but with respect to protests, is there anything in any case law or anything in the Constitution or anywhere else that you know of that would allow protesters to be filming and taking pictures?
They can film.
So they can film, they can take pictures. I just wanted to make that point clear. Okay.
It's probably for everyone's safety as well, but they are filming.
Okay.
Both sides can see exactly what happened.
Yeah. Okay. Are there any other questions? No.
I will point out, in closing, I'll point out one legal issue for the council. Peaceful protesting on public property for the purpose of obtaining or communicating information is lawful and constitutionally protected by Canada under Section 2B and 2C of the Charter, which guarantees freedom of expression and freedom of peaceful assembly.
Have you spoken to the town's council and or the region about this particular issue?
We have, and the town has voted to support the continued exploitation of horses. We do have other proposals for this company to, other methods of business for this company to adopt, which would transition them into an ethical business model. In Guadalajara, Mexico, they replaced 55 horse-drawn carriages with electric vehicle carriages. And this has been quite a successful transition. All the carriage operators are saying that they're actually more profitable now than they were before from the reduced overhead. There's reduced danger to the general public, because I'm not sure if you're aware of the accident that happened here last year.
No, I'm unaware. So what happened?
It was February last year. The horses were staging in this area right here. And as one horse, from my understanding, we were not here to witness this, but from the reports and stuff, one horse went to pass the other. They clipped each other, causing the horse clipping the other one to bolt with the carriage. And he took off, mounted the sidewalk here, and went all the way down the front of the hotel until he hit a parked car. And
was the horse okay?
The horse was okay. The driver was ejected from the carriage, but they were also luckily okay. But I mean, you could tell how that could have, the headline of that could have been very different if that would have per se happened in mid-August.
Yeah.
When this whole sidewalk was filled with people. I would suggest to her that she actually sit down with us and listen to our proposed ideas about what could be done to transition this business into one that's ethical, also that fits with the kind of the aesthetics of the area, right? Keeping it old school looking, but also with that 21st century progressiveness.
Have you ever asked her for a meeting, like a one-on-one, as opposed to a council?
We have. There was an attempt by the police to set up such a meeting between the two of us. Nothing has come to fruition yet, but this is something we are still working on, and at some point in the future, we are hoping to address the town council as a whole and propose the ideas we have to transition this into an ethical business model.
Is there a particular bias on the part of Legacy or local media?
There's been a couple different media companies that have been reporting on this throughout the time of the campaign. A good part of that media has been very fair and balanced and unbiased. There is one local publication here that has made it very obvious how they feel about it, and their reporting reflects as such. I mean, we still give them statements because, well, I mean, if they're going to cover it, I mean, any coverage is good coverage. So, I mean, and our narrative is very strict. Like, we only speak about very specific things, and we keep our issue very focused. So it's very hard to twist kind of what we stand for. I would say that regardless of any media coverage this does or does not receive, this issue is not going to go away. This is coming into our third season. You know, obviously media coverage is beneficial to this cause because the more people agree or disagree who are speaking about it, it's going to keep this issue front and center.
Have any of your members ever been arrested during the past protests?
With our group?
Yes.
No, we've never had anyone arrested for one of our actions before. We've never had anyone charged, cautioned, and or warned.
I've seen in some of your videos that people have taken up wearing body cameras.
Yes.
What's the reason for
That is for evidentiary purposes, for self-protection, and also protection of just documentation of the situation, right? Because during the beginning of this action, we had the police called on us probably about 50 times for made-up stuff, right? Like they would sit on the corner, one of them would sit on the patio here, and the other carriage driver would come out to our cameraman who was on the corner, and she would speak to him like this and be like, move, move. But from that angle that they were taping from, it looked like he was standing in the roadway. But since he was actually filming at the time, when the police showed up, we actually showed him the video of us just standing on the sidewalk, and he was like, oh, well, that is totally a false report. So it was instances like that, just very obvious lying, trying to frame us with the police, that made us invest in this body-worn technology. The Niagara Regional Police liaison services, they seem much more concerned about our ability to advocate than per se when we're out in Toronto. It's kind of a more authoritarian approach where they just kind of try to intimidate you to just shut up and go away.
But the Niagara Regional Police, you don't feel
No, we have had, they've been very good. Even when they've been called on us frivolously and people have lied to them about what we've done, they've always, you know, before doing anything, they've always looked at evidence, talked to people, and then made a very balanced decision.
We recognize the potential for a recurrence of protests, and all parties were brought together at Town Hall on August 10, 2018. We hope to work with all stakeholders to try and establish a written protocol. The protocol was intended to help manage the day-to-day activities of the protest sites. A protocol is essentially a good faith agreement established between parties involved in the dispute. We are presently trying to get all the involved parties in this matter back to the table to review the protocol. We hope to identify areas that have been successful and areas that we can improve upon.
The intent behind the boycott movement is to, there's a lot of businesses that are very core to the area here. Those businesses benefit very little to not at all from the existence of these exploitative businesses. So the intent of this boycott action per se is to get these businesses who realize very little to no benefit from this existing to take a public stance against it, because these businesses are very large and very powerful in the area, and if they were to come out and say, you know, we don't necessarily agree that this is happening here, that has huge weight behind it at City Council, right? And that's kind of the purpose behind this. Is up until now, this has been like an issue in town, but it's been an issue for a very select group of people. It's been very small, right? So the idea behind this is to kind of spread that out and agitate just a little more and kind of make this an issue for more people, so more people are willing to take a side on it.
So would your call to boycott, could it potentially hurt the small mom-and-pop type shops?
I mean, there's the potential it might, but I mean, this is mostly a symbolic action. I mean, the real tangible effect of this would probably be close to zero. So I mean, it's not like there's going to be millions of people who are all of a sudden going to refuse to come here, right? This is mainly a symbolic action to gain traction. I don't think that they would exist if we weren't here doing what we're doing, which to us is actually a sign of how actually successful this action has been. Because when you have these people who feel so threatened and challenged by an idea that you're proposing in a completely peaceful, reasonable way, that shows that you're touching a nerve and that this is something that needs to be addressed in society.
Pulling these carriages is what the horses were, quote, bred for. End quote. What do you have to say to that?
Okay, so there's a number of things I would like to say to that. First of all, as we spoke to before, I would not call this a rescue. This is a recycling of these horses. They were purchased from being killed, but to purchase someone and then reuse them for your profit, that's not really a rescue. If you were to rescue a horse, you would take them, provide them a home, and expect nothing of them except to exist as a horse, as nature intended them to. The second issue I would take with that is we've never said that they're mistreated. That's not something that we've ever claimed, and we don't even really speak to that anymore. Our issue is that they're used and their lives are commodified. And the third part of that, which ties into that second part, is the idea that they are bred for something. That is, to me, that is just as offensive as saying this person, like this human person, was bred for something, right? The only duty that any other animal has is to exist in nature as they were intended to. Like a bird is to exist as a bird, a squirrel is to exist as a squirrel, a human is to exist as a human, right? Animals don't need to do jobs for us. They don't need to live inside this human, this human colonial construct. Like, this is not how they need to exist. They don't owe us any service. They don't owe us anything.